the COVID restrictions anyhow. I call for apologies, and I believe there's one from Philip Coles. I haven't heard from, no, that's okay. Somebody move in a second, please. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Lou. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. What's that? Lou. Yeah, that's all right. Disclosure of members' interest. Are there any disclosures, Lou? Thank you.
I disclose a conflict of interest on item 9 on the agenda, please.
Item 9?
Item 9.
Thank you. Anything else? We'll note that. Thank you. Are there any late items? Thank you. Mover in a second for the confirmation of the order of the meeting. No changes, Jenny. We're all good to go. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Mike, I'm not used to seeing you over there, buddy. That's a dark side. Finally, he's seen the light. That moved in second? Yeah. All those in favour say aye. It's carried. Okay, confirmation of the open minutes and the service delivery for the 16th of February. Just go through those for corrections and additions, or page 8 and 9, page 10, page 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Is it? No, where are we? 16, sorry. Yep, all good. Thank you, Roger. Moving. Elwin second. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Item 6, Water Services Quarterly Report. We have Martin and his team here. Martin, you've got some people you'd like to introduce to the councillors? Yes. Welcome, guys. Hey, I always do, mate. Very topical thing, water at the moment. Indeed. Oh, well, that as well. Yeah.
Cool. Good morning, Mr. Chairperson and councillors.
I was thinking of the drinking stuff, sorry.
So this report is for the period from October to December. So there's some leeway between what's in that period and current. So it's a challenge to keep it in that time period. Take the report as read. Some key points of notice. Obviously, the abatement notice served on Council for Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant has been withdrawn. Now we've got a new compliant. So that officially came through in December, that we could withdraw that abatement notice. The detailed business case for the sub-regional wastewater treatment plant was presented, so was due to be presented on the 26th of February. It was presented to them, and still no decision on preferred was formally made at that time. And there's still some more work to do on consideration of growth timing and testing the sensitivity of growth assumptions. We'll come back to that later on. Yes, Claire.
Do you have an idea when we might get to see it? Because I mean, you know, there's a bit of slippage now. So, do you have any idea when? Because I'm concerned that it might just carry on being delayed and delayed. Any idea?
Defer to the mayor to answer that one.
That's really Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jim.
Look, I really don't know. At the moment, it's an issue predominantly raised by the City Council in terms of not believing the science, I suppose, at the moment, or engineering, I should say, rather than science. You know, at the moment, the way it's stacked up is that the engineering advice is that it's a standalone plant at Cambridge, potential for a plant at south of Hamilton sometime in the future that would cater for the airport and potentially any wet industry, and the rest of Hamilton going north to Puketi, which has come up through the investigations as being able to cope with probably more demand than was originally thought. The real killer is the pumping costs associated with pumping the waste either from Cambridge to Hamilton South or vice versa. And $1 million, Martin, in round figures, on an annual basis. So the advice is that's the option that we should go with. Now, the assumptions have been challenged by the city saying they don't believe it effectively and want to reassess those engineering assumptions, I suppose. But at the end of the day, we've said that we have to move on from a Cambridge point of view. We've got a temporary consent, but that's going to run out pretty quick if we're going to need to get on and get something constructed in what's 5 and a bit years. Yeah. Martin's counting down. So, you know, we can't muck around. So at some point along the journey, we need to be in a position to say, look, we've gone along with the discussions and certainly support the sub-regional approach to this. But when the answer comes up that this is the solution and the pressure that we've got on to build it, we've got to make the call. So I suppose we can't let it go on for too long because otherwise we're eating into our temporary consent time. So at the moment, we're just waiting for that, for the information to be reassessed. And look, I would think within a couple of months, we're going to be having that information back to the committee. So it's not just going to go on, and we effectively can't allow it to go on and on because of the issues that's going to create for us down the line. So at the moment, from a Waipart perspective, Waikato to the north, basically sitting there quite content with what, you know, in terms of how they're going to deal with everything to the north. So it's really us that's under the pressure. So look, let's reassess based on what the city's concerns are, but at some point we're going to have to make the call. Yeah. And fairly soon, I would suggest.
Yeah, well, so we'll touch that. Well, what we're up to shortly. So another point is,
Mr. Chair. Yeah, Roger. Sorry.
No. Jim, if Cambridge did go for standalone, surely that would have quite an impact on the feasibility and the cost structure of Hamilton having to provide a plant just for the Hamilton service. So, I mean, have we not got the pressure there that not?
No, that's all been taken into account, Roger, in terms of looking at the opportunity to move all of the sewerage from Hamilton to the north to Puketi, which has room for expansion, has all been factored into it. That's part of the decision-making process. So all of those issues have been considered, and that's effectively, I suppose, everybody was expecting that a southern treatment plant was going to be the most cost-effective solution. But the figures have shown something different. So I must admit, I was anticipating that a new plant to the south of Hamilton was going to be the preferred option. But at the end of the day, that's what the figures have shown, the engineering advice and the cost structures, and looking at all of those options. So definitely taking into account what impact it has on the city.
yeah, I think we all predicted a sub-regional wastewater treatment plant would be the preferred outcome. So we're all now chasing tails, I think. Yeah. So another point to note is our articulation staff have been kept busy. We've had an awful lot of minor leaks and breaks in water pipes, not major ones, but leaks all around the district. So that's been keeping us busy. And they're the type pipes we wouldn't normally be on a renewals program because they're too small. But again, it does take us away from doing some renewals, both from a resource and a budget perspective. So we do slightly less renewals to make sure we don't go over budget fixing all the small leaks. The water demand for the period was fairly normal up until December, which was good. There was people were starting to take effect of the water alert levels that were in place at that time from the 1st of December. So again, it is out of date. We have moved on significantly. So just for an update. Sorry, yes.
I'm just waiting for a break
Yeah.
in the traffic and then
Yeah.
Look, just on that point, like I know that you do have to do the report, you know, to December, but given that it's always January, February where we're under pressure and we're in March now, I mean, I just wish we could have the up-to-date figures for this meeting. That's all, because like where I live and like in Tuamutu as well, we've been under alert level 2. It'd be really good to see what the demand response had been to that, and also if there's any likelihood that the alert level 2 will be lifted shortly and things like that. So I don't know if there's any way around the reporting
So
side.
that's why we do have the update section at the back to bring it as up to date as we can. So we're happy to. I was going to go on and say the communities have done really well with their water demand management over the January, February and March. And we'll be removing all alert levels on Friday.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so that's because, again, the summer's been kind. It's rained. It's not been as dry, and we've conserved water, and so we can move back to no alert levels on Friday.
So I'd like to have the graphs, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, that's quite.
Can I just very quickly ask you then, so the high demand for Kihiki was due to the planned maintenance, not to the fact that we've had quite a huge increase in our residents living there. I see some more houses going up.
No, it was due to the work we were doing, and the maintenance caused more. It showed more usage because we were forcing it down particular routes, and so it showed that there was more usage, and yeah, it was a hard to.
And I wonder if the taste of it, I don't know, sometimes you can actually smell it.
The Kihiki water?
Yeah, but it's not a nice smell, and it's actually, this morning I noticed it again. It's not a nice taste. In fact, if I went back to my childhood, I'd say, Dad, there's probably a dead starling in the tank. But you know, that was just what it reminded me of. And just, yeah, it's a funny taste, but there's certainly a lot more people in Kihiki.
Yes, yeah, so certainly we'll if you will have a look at the taste and odour there. We haven't had any complaints around it recently, so.
No, I haven't got to the phone. I'm just sitting here. I'm thinking you're right there.
Yes, well, yeah, so we'll certainly look at that. Yeah, yeah.
Hazel, stick to the wine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah. It's made me lose my place now.
Page 20, rainwater harvesting.
So, yeah. So water demand. So we've say the levels will be reduced on Friday across the district. It's good. The next point I want to make is on page 25. There's the water supply drinking water standards KPI measures, where we show, which we have reported before, that we weren't compliant in Tuamutu Township in October. I just want to bring it to your attention that the Audit and Risk Committee, was it last week, it said we were fully compliant. There was an error in that report, so it should have showed that non-compliance in the Audit and Risk report. So we have corrected that missing link between those two reports. So apologies for that.
Mr. Jim, just on that point, when it's perceived to be a sampling error, is that in fact a non-compliance? Because after you get a non-compliant sample like that, I would imagine you go back and recheck, and it's okay. So just one bad sample, because someone's put their thumb around the neck of the bottle when they've taken the water sample, or something similar, it's really not the water supply that's non-compliant, it's the testing methodology, I suppose. So if nothing else has shown up after that, just one bad sample, then there's nothing wrong with the water. So why do we have to end up with it being non-compliant?
Because that's that's the technical rules, and then we do believe at the end of the year we can assess that, and if that was the only one over the year, then it can be discounted at the end of the year. But until we get to that point, it is still a non-compliant sample.
Clear.
Yeah, I'm with Jim on this. I just think it's pretty poor that we are stuck with a reporting system that says that if we get any non-compliance, it has to be reported and on our books for 12 months or you know, to the end of the year. And only then we can reassess it, because there is a lot of interest, or there is a lot of pressure on councils to demonstrate that they're managing drinking water well, and this kind of measure would be used to judge how well we're doing it. And I think it absolutely has to be accurate and reflect the real situation. And so I'm pretty disgusted that there hasn't been able to be an improvement in the way the reporting's done. And in fact, I don't think we've been very well served at all by whether it's central government or the people that are designing the system. And if local government can't get the message across that we need a system that's actually fit for purpose, if we are going to be held to account to it, well, yeah, I'm pretty upset about it.
Yeah. From my perspective, it keeps the spotlight on all water suppliers. Those are the rules. They are challenging, and the technical aspects. It keeps us on our toes and keeps us honest along the way. So it does serve a good purpose from my perspective. And picking it will only get tougher under Tiamato ROI when that kicks in July. I think it will get tougher and more technical. The next one I've got is the on the same page. I think the Tiamutu wastewater treatment plant PLC failure event, where we reported previously that it was under investigation by the regional council to see if they were going to prosecute us for that event. We heard from them this week that they would only be issuing an abatement notice and not prosecuting. So it's quite a good result for us that we're not being prosecuted and we'll have an abatement notice served. It's not. Yes, it's good news to that respect. Yep.
And did you just briefly want to give a reason why they're not prosecuting in terms of our standing with the regional council as far as compliance goes on all of our plants?
Yeah, again, we've got a good level of compliance. We were also extremely upfront and worked with them along the investigation. We alerted them straight away. So it's not just if you have an event, it's how well you deal with it at the time, but how well you also inform everybody and keep everybody informed and work with them to find the solution. They deemed it could have been foreseen, and that's why we got an abatement notice, but it wasn't serious enough to be, although we say we're compliant most of the time, so that puts us in good stead. Yeah.
So Martin, can I just ask, the technical issue that caused that, is that been double tested, triple tested, or made sure that, you know, what clicks in and clicks out should always happen, if you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep, it's all been tested and fixed, and it was all due to be replaced as part of the upgrade that's just been completed. Yeah. So in fact, all that old stuff is now gone. So,
okay, thank you.
But yep, you can never.
I know.
You don't see anything. On page 29 of the major projects, we talk about the Wycaria wastewater project. So today, the wastewater from Wycaria starts to be pumped. So that's an amazing outcome of that long-term project, that today it all comes to fruition and the pumps will be turned on and wastewater will start to be transmitted to TA, which is quite a large.
Thank you, Claire.
I'd just like to say congratulations to all people that have been involved in that project, because it's been pretty massive actually. And from my point of view, I think the reporting we've had, it seems to have gone, step by step really well. And so I think, the people that have been involved have done a great job.
Cool, I'll pass that on. Thanks.
Martin, on the Christie Ave, are we still on target for an August 21 completion?
There's currently a slight hiccup with one of the pipes supplying Christie Ave. So we're just investigating We need to block it off.
Yeah.
To work on Christie Ave, and it's got a couple of issues with the pipe supplying it, so it may delay that.
Okay, thank you.
So again, just in the current or upcoming or updates, again, we've talked about the network issues with leaking. The Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant, again, we've discussed the sub-regional process and moving towards that. But again, as we say here, we're predicting very strongly that it's going to be a 4A Cambridge standalone plant. So we've started work now. It was 5.5 years. We haven't got time to go slowly or to wait too much longer. So we're already starting on a consenting strategy, starting talking with iwi and consultants around how do we go about obtaining the consent, working clearly with iwi to make sure it's as smooth as possible. We've got a very good start from the short-term consent we've just completed. We've got very good relationships with everybody, so we're hoping to continue and build on them and move on. And as part of that, there was also discussions with Fonterra. We've been having, they've got similar issues. They've got to build a new treatment plant in a short time frame. So we have had some discussions on whether a combined plant could work. Currently having a technical paper written to give that outcome. It's not looking that it'd be feasible, but we just went for the final technical report to show that. Of that, any questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, a couple. Just on the water sampling standard, have we got a standard procedure for that? Like there's a written procedure?
There is, yeah.
Yeah. Right, and the next one, just if we have to go standalone for the water treatment plant, my understanding was the financial implication for the council was going to be quite immense. Just any comment on that?
So we've got in the proposed LTP, we have the project in there and the funds allocated in there.
Which, how much?
I was going to say there's about 80
85 to 100 million.
Yeah, 80 million is the number I had in my head. But I guess we're waiting for further information on what the likely cost is going to be. Now we know what position, and now we know that we're going alone. So and of course there's still the Fonterra discussion to be potentially had as well, although I'm not too sure where that's at. But yeah, there may need to be further funds, Mike. Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, until we've actually got a consent to know what we've got to build to, which is when the final design will fall into place.
All right. Yes, thank you, Jim.
Just a quick question on, and I'm bring it up on the way through, but the Three Waters revaluation, and it looks like we've underestimated the value. Is that sort of an industry problem, or? And I suppose the reason I'm asking the question, with the reforms coming on board, asset valuation is going to be critical when it comes, if we opt in or opt out, as the option is at the moment. Making sure that we've got our assets valued appropriately is going to be critical, because in terms of what impact that's going to have, obviously, in handing over those assets and how they're going to work that out. And I suppose if we're having problems, then around the country they're probably having problems as well, and the impact of what that's going to mean for the new water structures, I suppose, is going to be pretty important.
Yeah, most definitely. And some of the feedback from the Scottish Commission, who's done the RFI and informing the government, have identified that quite a lot of councils, if not all of them, undervalue their assets to some degree. And so we've identified our above ground assets we've undervalued over the last wee while. So there will be a correction for us.
Okay. Marcus.
I think it's great that we've been involved with the rain harvesting and promoting schools and things. I think that's really awesome. But with the Christie Road stuff, do you have any indication what the cost change might be with the extra bits that we've had to do?
For the pipe we've just identified. So there will be a slight delay in cost on the project. The cost of fixing the pipe will come out of a renewals budget, not the project budget. But there will be some delay costs for the contractor, which we haven't worked through yet. We'll probably have to reline the pipe. About 85 metres of pipe. Yeah.
Claire, did you have another question?
My question actually, Martin, was about, the undervaluation of the assets, their water assets, because in fact, I'm just wondering how that happened, because we haven't deliberately undervalued them. We've actually relied on a reliable third party, to do the valuing for us. So I'm not sure how it arose. Like, do you know why it was that we were undervaluing? Because I'm sure it wasn't a deliberate policy on our behalf.
No, good question. I think I'll defer to Dawn to answer that one.
I think a big part of it is the fact that the market is moving quite a bit just at the moment. The costs, and because we've invested in our infrastructure over the last three years, we've got a much greater insight as to what those costs now are. And so it's now that we've got those data sets and starting to look back and sort of going, actually, we've now got our eyes open as to what the true costs really are. So you're absolutely right, though. There is a question to be asked of our valuers in terms of, part of their brief is also to be checking those market movements. But, sometimes looking in the rear vision mirror doesn't necessarily give you the complete picture. So,
Roger?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Martin, the revaluation that you're talking about, has that occurred? When will it occur in our books? Because we did have a similar situation with the roading revaluation that had quite an incredible impact on the annual rates. Are we likely to see the same thing? I know it's a window before the possible handover of assets, but they're going to be on our books for a time, which will mean that there'll be a depreciation.
Yes, it's expected there'll be a depreciation gap that needs to be filled when that.
And is that likely to be of the same quantum like as the revaluation of roads?
I don't know what the revaluation of roading was.
Because that made a 2% variation in our rates, didn't it? The roading revaluation.
I didn't think it's that serious.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have it quantified at the moment. We're only just starting our waters valuation process, so this becomes an input into the wider one. So it's a flag, but we haven't quantified it as yet. In terms of hitting the books, it'll be carried because we've already included an allowance for depreciation in year one of the LTP. Any deficit will be carried year one, but it will impact on year two of the LTP. So we will see an impact, but whether it's as large as what we saw in the transport space, we haven't got those insights yet, sorry.
Any further? The recommendation there that the report from Martin be received. If someone could be moved and second, I'd be happy. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mike. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Yeah. Water supply maps, area maps, proposed update. Turn your. Oh. Yeah, there's a lovely young lady beside you. She'll be absolutely brilliant. You're right age too. You must have been playing around because you can't get any other songs or anything on Diligent. Roger, when you speak, can you talk into the microphone, pull the microphone around because it's you're very, very soft. Yeah, it's probably hard. Oh, here we go. Yeah. But she must have gone off Diligent because you can't get any of that on Diligent. It's you have to give those games up, Hazel. Don't play those games.
Good morning, Chairman and councillors. I take the report as read and I'll just cover a few key points. So with extensive growth in Waipā, the water supply area has also grown. However, this has not been reflected in Council's water supply area maps, representing Schedule 2 of the water supply bylaw. Previously, a legal risk was identified which raised the concern that the Schedule 2 maps could not be amended without following the special consultative procedure. This is because the maps are physically attached to the bylaw and most amendments to the bylaw must be made following the special consultative procedure under Section 156 of the Local Government Act. However, the legal risk has recently been reassessed due to the fact that Clause 11 of the bylaw specifically provides that the schedules do not form part of the bylaw. It is now considered there is a low risk with the requirements of Section 156 would apply to amend the maps. The bylaw specifically states they do not form part of the bylaw, so the requirements around amending the bylaw of the Local Government Act would not apply. So option 1 was discussing updates to the supply area maps to reflect growth. So the recommendation is that we update the maps as provided in the appendices of the report to ensure the water supply areas reflect the existing infrastructure and area available to be serviced. Any questions?
Has this got anything to do with the valuations? So they identify all the pipes in the reticulation system? No?
These are purely for areas that we service.
Yep, okay.
Supply water.
Yep.
Chairman, I'm
Jim?
happy to move the resolution. Look, it's great that somebody's made a slip up in the bylaw, so the map not covered. It just makes common sense, doesn't it, to amend the maps as our water supply extends. So, look, I absolutely support the recommendation. Happy to move.
Thank you, Jim. Is there? Okay.
It's just that if you look at Pirongia, okay, the future area excludes most of the village that has got resource consents for the residential properties to go on right now. So I didn't understand why Pirongia Village, like I know the growth cell for Pirongia Village is actually the perimeter of the village. So why is that not allowing water connections to those resource consents? Yeah, because it goes right to the south to the river. The sort of the urban area. Yeah, that's what I wanted to query before we pass the resolution.
Yeah. So the map shows the area that we supply on demand water to as a right, and also there's the bits with the red on where they need to extend the supply maps. Anything outside of that will need their own water supply. They may have consent to build a house, but they may have to put roof tanks in and supply their own water. I don't know the details, but they're not currently zoned as a growth area for us to be ready for the future. Not to say they can't be updated in the future, but currently they're not part of our supply zone. And what the supply zone gives us is the ability to say no, rather than the ability, we can always say yes if we want to give someone water. It enables us, if someone lives in that area, 500 metres from the nearest water pipe, if they're in the water supply zone, they can demand the supply, which puts us at risk of them having to put the infrastructure in for them. So that's why we try to keep the supply zones rather tight. And they do, over time, they do creep out, and that's why we then have to update the maps once they've creeped out. But I don't know the exact areas of Pirongia.
Yeah, and I don't know what the conditions are for those quite large subdivisions going south, like the Brown and Raymer and Vander Sand ones. Yeah, that's all. And
They should be available. Those conditions should be available on the resource consent, should they not?
yeah, Dawn, would you be able to find out if we could just have a look at that, see if they do have to provide their own water if they're allowed to link in? Yeah.
What are the three, Claire?
The Browns, the Raymer and Vander Sand.
Okay.
Yeah, they're on the east side and they're proceeding as we speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my understanding is that if part of their subdivisions, they'll be required to put in the water supply. Yeah.
To these maps,
Yeah.
they'll have to have rainwater tanks and they won't be able to link into the Pirongia water supply that comes from Te Tahi, which I thought most people were doing.
So it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't mean we can say yes. It gives us the ability to say yes, but also it gives us that ability to say no when we need to, and that's the benefit of the supply map.
So there's water available at the moment at Pirongia. It's just the fact that the pipes haven't been laid. And I would suspect there's a condition in the resource consents for those subdivisions that you're talking about, that they've got to lay the water supply network as part of that subdivision. So effectively, they'll put the water supply in and then connect as long as we've got enough volume to supply. And then next time we change the maps, they'll be in it.
Subdivisions are right on, and they're all in town. So I guess you're right, Jim, it can be done then, but I think your point is, why isn't it being done now? Because the subdivisions are well underway and consent, I think, has been granted for some of them.
Yeah. Would they not go onto the maps until the total thing was connected and approved? Or is that just a process?
So we're always behind updating maps. So there's always greater supply than what's in the maps because things change. So these haven't been updated since 2013, and yet there's been growth everywhere. So this is trying to encapsulate the growth to date, and there will be more to come as it happens. But if we go too early, like I say, it provides the right that we will supply water. So if you put a new growth cell in a water supply zone, if there's one old original house living in that zone, they then have the right to a water supply, and we would then have to run the infrastructure to get them. That's the protection the supply zone gives us, and we only extend it once the infrastructure's in place.
So Martin, these haven't been updated for 8 years. Is there a plan to do them more frequently?
Yes.
Because of the growth that we've got?
It was because of the issue when the bylaw was written. The previous legal advice we had was that you can't update the maps on their own. Right. We've since had that revisited, and we can now update the maps on our own at low risk, so we can do it more often. It's
probably been quite an onerous job to get, after 8 years, to get them all sorted, you know. So if there's no more questions, I think Jim's moved, and Andrew, you were going to second the report from Melissa. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. Good stuff. There is a lot going on with water, isn't there, Hazel? That's the one, yes. Okay, Julie, welcome. Welcome, Julie. Just a question before you get underway. We've got quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4 here to approve. Is it possible that some of these could be done under delegated authority with senior staff? And if there was an objection to one, it could come before this committee for a resolution? Is that a stupid question, or is that not in the realms of the possibilities?
Up until now, my understanding has been that they have to come to council. What we've recently done with the Waipā Fun Run being postponed is we've managed to get some advice from Diana around what the delegation is. And
Diana's our legal lady?
Yep. To try and get that through so that they can run that event on the 28th, sort of a 3-week turnaround instead of the 90 days we usually work to. So given that it's already been approved by council, Diana was happy that it was a low risk to have appropriate person delegate responsibility. I'd have to go back and have another discussion with her about things that haven't already been approved by council once.
Can you see what I'm trying to say? There are no objections. So if it can get signed delegated authority, there's no need to have the debate or have them coming through here. But I'm just trying to help the process get going.
Look, I was thinking the same thing, Graham, when I saw the volume of them come up on our agenda. This is an operational issue. I'm surprised it's a governance issue.
Anyhow, we love having you here.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
It is really interesting. So under the Local Government Act, there's a whole sort of list of areas where officers can exercise delegations within road stoppings, but it very specifically within the Act itself says not for 11E, which 11E is road closures for events. And so previously in all my career, it's been the advice, therefore absolutely it's got to sit with elected members. However, apparently there is an alternate legal opinion that says actually you can look at that to say it's not an automatic delegation to officers to pick that up, but that council could make a decision exactly as you're saying, that it's an operational matter, and through your delegations register apply, to make it give effect to a delegation. So that is something that's been, as I say, it's a view that I've only just become aware of, and it's something that, as Julia said, we're going to be utilising for the Waipā Fun Run, but it's certainly something that we can look further into in terms of the contemplation of we have, that opportunity to relook at our delegations. So we can have that conversation with Diana and maybe look at that in terms of in what circumstances it's appropriate for a delegation to be exercised, and where it's more appropriate for it to come to elected members for a decision. So we'll pick that one up.
Thank you. Michael first, and then
Thank you.
Yeah, just through the chair, I totally support that thing. It makes sense. The only thing would just be just to make sure somehow, some way, we're informed as councillors just of the road closures. But
of what got approved.
Just so we know when people ask us, hey, what's this, what's that? But no, it's a great idea.
When we come back with that from Diana, it'll give us a lead and hopefully clear it up. But it just seems a lot of bit of ho-hum. Okay, Hazel. Okay, thanks, Hazel. Okay. Yep. We've got to go through. Sorry.
Sorry, I through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just thinking, possibly similar to the, you'll see in the report we bring, where we've awarded contracts within our financial delegations. We could maybe do it under that sort of a format.
Yeah. I'd have an issue. If someone objected, there was an objection, I think, yes, it's got to come back. But if it's straightforward like this, been advertised and it's come back, no dramas, then, get on with life. And Julie, Anzac Day.
So this is the last lot for the main summer event season. So I think should calm down for the next few meetings.
Thank you. Okay, there's a recommendation here, A, B and C, and it's the same as what's happened on Anzac Day for 100 years, and there's been no objections. So Mike's moving, Mayor's seconding. All those in favour say aye. Against. Tia Mutu. Thank you, Liz. Moving. Claire seconding. All those in favour say aye. Against. Carried. Cambridge Cycling Festival. Thank you, Liz. Seconder, please. Lou. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Kairangi Loop event. Recommendation there. A, B and C. Mover and seconder, please. Andrew and Alwyn. All those in favour say aye. Against. Carried. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we'll look at, we'll look into whether we can make it even faster for you this time.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. Can we have something back for the next meeting, or did you want it to go out to councillors
We'll look at something later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Julie. Okay. Contract signed under delegation, page 58. Anything to add there, Dawn? All good. Any questions on those? Recommendation that the information from delegated authority be received. All those, sorry, mover and second, Claire, sorry, thank you. Yeah.
Is it about the first one, the Chanel Place and Wycaria Stream cycleway bridges? Sorry about that. Yeah, it's about that first one, the Chanel Place and Wycaria Stream cycleway bridges. Where exactly is that bridge at Chanel Place? Because it's not on the usual route I would have expected for the cycleway. Yeah. It's the first time I've heard about it. I'm hoping that the Mangapiko bridge will be built to link the two sides of the Memorial Park, and yet this is a different one. Yeah.
I'm not Absolutely sure. So we'll organise to get a map to you. But it is a walkway bridge, so it's not a traffic bridge.
Yeah, but
Does
it's
that
suitable
help?
for us.
No?
But it's suitable. Oh, right. So but it would be suitable for a cycleway, though.
I would
Yeah,
anticipate
yeah,
that if we
yeah.
were replacing a bridge, we're making it
we've got the
wider,
water
but I'll
reform
confirm that
Yeah,
for you.
thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say, through you, Mr. Chair, it's the bridge you can see if you're driving down over the Magistrate Bridge, and there's a car park in there.
Yeah.
If you're heading north, if you look to the right, you'll see it there. Yeah, and it is a good link, pedestrian link, to get people across from the state highway side, if you like, into town. Yeah, but at the moment, it's predominantly, I would suggest, walking. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Claire you moved that. We didn't get a second, did we? Thank you, Jim. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Martin, are you doing Robin's report or? No, or did you want to wait for Robin? That's what I'm trying to find out. Otherwise, we can break for morning tea. Okay, we'll break for morning tea. Thank you. and we're at the Three Waters reform. And welcome, Robin, good to see you. Welcome to this meeting and looking forward to what you have to say and answer all the curly questions.
Yep, we'll team tag a little as well if we need to.
So take the memo as read. It's basically a slightly holding pattern at the moment. There's not masses of new information here. Central government still haven't come out with strong guidance yet. We do have on what water freeform and number of entities may look like. We have had some individual council feedback from DIA on the submission we made, and we seem to be across the average for New Zealand. We're on the good side of the average with regard to the amount of investment that we make and the assets we have. So that was just the highlight of some feedback we got directly on our submission last week. With regard to the shovel-ready projects, effectively the funding we've got there, John Mackey was actually in the office yesterday and was taking a very keen interest on how we're progressing with regard to delivery of those projects that they're funding. And he actually went out to Parallel Road and wanted to take some physical pictures of the water storage tank, for example. So I got the impression there's quite an amount of pressure on him to actually push these investment and spend along, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be impotence funding. So yeah, he was very keen to see physical progress, hence taking him out to see the reservoirs out.
So Robin, who's John Mackey? What's his status? What's he do?
So he's the DIA's agent for all the Waikato councils for their delivery plans for the water stimulus package. So all of the Waikato councils, we report through to him on how we're doing with spending the money. And so it was his first visit since then. And yeah, really wanted to see some physical works happening. And again, it's still early days for most projects. They're still in the planning phase. So it was good that we could show him one that was out of the ground. Yeah. But yeah, he reports directly back to the DIA. Yeah.
Just some background on John Mackey, just briefly. He was the Deputy Borough Engineer prior to reorganisation in 1989 for Te Awamutu. So you know the area well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Robin, it is pretty impressive looking at Parallel Road from the road. No, I couldn't get in there because I didn't want to not be nosy, but what they've done is amazing, really. So compliments.
Yep, so just on that note, one of the things I forgot to mention earlier was that for the next service delivery meeting in April is that we're planning on doing some visits, which were deferred from last time. And one is the Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant, and one is the new Parallel Road Water Treatment Plant. So just give you a heads up around those visits. They're both lovely. You can see Roger's house from the Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's a wonderful place.
And when we get the opportunity, Dawn and I Hill and had a look at the start of the new cycleway behind St. Peter's, and the last sign off on access on the last farm, I think, came through on Friday morning right to the wire. And when we get a chance and that's a little bit more progressed, we'll all go down there and have a look. At the moment, the access is very difficult, but as they get through, we can probably get some access off Hooker Road and down that way, or through McGrath's or something like that, to see what's going on. I've got 7 photos on my phone if somebody wanted to have a little quick because it looks good. Okay.
Look, just in terms of the waters reform paper, and look, we're still very much in the dark in terms of detail to be able to go and talk to our community about what the potential impacts are in terms of asset valuation, how the whole thing is going to operate in any sort of detail at all, and what the cost implications are going to be to our ratepayers. But I'm just the question I have is that, or a statement I suppose, is that it appears that all of the information we're getting is based on the assumption that we will actually be part of the waters reform and we're not opting out. And without having the information, we still need to be able to make an informed decision at some point along the journey. And what's our best option? Is it staying in or is it opting out? And we don't know. The question I have is, are we doing any work on what it would look like if council decided to opt out and what the implications of that would be?
So the answer is no, because we don't know what opting out would look like yet. We're hoping that there's the workshop on the 26th next week, which most of us are going to. Hopefully we'll be slightly better informed at the end of that. And then hopefully the information starts coming through a lot quicker. I mean, if government still wish to have councils make a decision by December whether we're opting out or not, then we'll need a lot more information, which is we're all in the same boat. There isn't much there. Other than the little snippets you get from the DIA, who did say, the top man at the DIA who did say opting out would look like, you know, if there's a water supplier in your area that's non-compliant, then it'd be an expectation of the water supplier, the big water supply in that area would take that on. And so if you're a water entity, you would take on a non-compliant small supplier. If you decide to opt out, it will be your responsibility to take on a small supplier who's failed, and of which there's thousands in the district and hundreds of thousands in the country. So there's probably some sticks and carrots that they'll come out with, and that's one of the sticks, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say most of what they're putting out there is sticks, and just some of those small suppliers, whether they're going to be comfortable with anybody taking over their water supply is going to be an interesting debate that they're going to need to get into in some detail. So yeah, look, I'm hopeful that we'll get more information on the 26th or whatever it is at the end of the month. But look, it still seems to me that there's a huge gaps in the information for us to be able to make an informed decision one way or the other.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not too sure whether it's to you, Martin, or to me, Jim. And you've both referred to the meeting that's next Friday, week on Friday, in Rotorua. Have we had any indication as to what is going to be provided at that meeting? No, nothing at all? I mean, how many of us are going to that meeting on Friday? Yeah, so it's, I mean, yet we don't know what's, they've made quite a voice about that it's an important meeting and sharing information, but we don't know what's coming up.
But I think it is the start of that consultation. So it's to show you and explain to you rather than just giving you something to read without any explanation behind it. I'm hoping it's the chance for them to say, this is what our thoughts today, and here's the rationale for that, which is much easier to do in present than it is in a piece of paper. But I don't know.
My reaction would be, if it's so important, you'd normally circulate the material beforehand and give people time to read it. Certainly go through it on the day, but if you're expecting people to respond on the day without any advance notice, you're not actually likely to get anything more than knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, I think that's why it's classed as a workshop, to start bringing you along on that journey of knowledge sharing, and not one to make any. Yeah,
good on you, Martin.
Decisions.
Could I just ask a few other questions though, because it mentioned under the DIA request for information, the last paragraph, it says that the water entity bill and economic, I presume it's regulator framework. So I haven't seen an economic regulator framework. That's the first time I've actually seen it in writing. I think people have said we're probably going to have an economic regulator, but it'd be great to have a bit more information about that and what the idea is, like the concept about how it would operate, even if we don't have the detail. Yeah. Have you got any information on the economic regulator framework, Martin?
No. So all we put in here is the snippets we hear from the DIA, little bits of information they put out. We try to replicate. They are sent out every Friday, I think, to you all anyway. So you all receive them, and then which most of the time refers you back to the DIA website. So it's only by going and reading that as you pick up little bits. I think the time frame's probably not not August. But that's about it. And then later on, when we talk about the second tranche of money, which is the carrot to continuing on the journey, again, current thought process is there will be no tranche 2 money, is the case will be so compelling and the sticks so harsh that you'll have it'll be an easy decision to make and you won't need a further bribe to participate. But that's my view from what I'm hearing, that there's no tranche 2 money and that there's $2.3 billion ready to spend on putting things right once water reform is, rather than giving us money to say yes to it, they would rather spend that money on setting up and getting it right. Is the current, what I'm hearing, but I don't, I'm way down the chain of hearing anything.
The indication of the economic regulator was that's literally a cut and paste from the DO webpage, and that is literally all the information there was. An indication that there would be an economic regulator.
You're going to these meetings, and what I'm curious about is, are you hearing anything different to what we did a few years ago? And I pulled a couple of those reports out the other day to have a look at them and wondered if our staff who are new since then, is it all terribly different, or is there big improvements? Is there, you know, this is what I can't get my head around, these reforms, and think, hang on a minute, we've been there before and that was a heck of a process. You know, it was a huge process. So is what the...
I think what's happened in between that and now is that we had a Havelock North and all hell broke loose because they didn't, you know, something's got to happen. But my take is this: while they might think bigger is better and you won't have those incidents, you've still got the human factor, and they will always be there in terms of whatever entity you've got. Now, when we were meeting with people from Auckland and had to deal with water care, they were bringing down manuals that thick about what you need to do in water care to put a spade in the ground and do all those things. Those same people were doing subdivisions in Waipara with a manual that thick. And they were saying Waipara and what it had was a dream to deal with. So there's going to be some bureaucracy that it must be more expensive at the end of the day. And the other thing that was disappointing was, because of the setup of water care in Auckland, the people on the ground could never get through to someone higher up. They were not in the knowledge about what was happening at ground level to get something happening. And I'm honestly skeptical. I think that's going to happen here. You know, through life, and we've seen it with Fonterra, you get sloppy decisions, you get waste of money. And I still think our water, guys are grounded, they're close to the ground, but you are always going to have some of those things going on. You don't want, but that's life. I don't know, I just fear for what's going to happen. I really do.
Thank you. That was really, yeah, because we put an understanding that took all these, and I've still got all the paperwork that was handed out to us, and it was a headache to keep in touch, and that's what I'm hoping, that when you and Jim and Liz go, that you break it down into something that we can talk about.
Well, we need to realise that it wasn't until after that had diminished that we found, going through those reports, that some of the business case figures were not correct. And, you know, you'd want certainty going into that, otherwise we're going to be all worse off. More questions to Rob and Martin. But you can't tell us much, Robin, because we're all, you know, I think it's vital that we, you know, when we go over there, we pick up all this and just bring it home and digest it and make sure that, you know, we're not going to be disadvantaged. I think, you know, Waipara will be gutted with the water division or going out. I just can't, I don't know. I know in Federated Farmers, we're extremely worried about what's happening on farm with having 2 or 3 houses, and what we have to do to provide assurance to our staff that our water is, you know, this and it's untreated. We're not too sure what's ahead of us, but it's going to be fairly costly, I would imagine, yeah. Don't know.
Chair. Yeah, well, no, but I mean, really, we've got the 10 work streams that stuff's meant to be happening on, but until we've got the results of those, we're just sitting and waiting, basically, aren't we?
Yeah, so those work streams are what, Sorghum or Tatua? So we've engaged them between 10 of the councils in the Waikato to start working on these 10 streams. So we're more informed ourselves instead of leaving it to central government to inform us. So they're working on those 10 streams to make us, so we can be better informed. So we've chosen with Sorghum those 10 work streams, yeah, to try and identify any issues and ways forward.
The other thing that's happened is, sorry.
Say it makes a huge amount of sense that we're not relying on just everything coming out of central government and doing work ourselves on it. Yeah.
I think what happened in Otago with the potential lead situation is played right into their hands. They've just said, hey, look, this is not on. Local government can't do the job right, so we'll legislate. All the old pipes had lead joiners in them.
We'd rather not kill anybody or poison anybody for any reason.
I'm a bit like Jim. I can well remember Mum and Dad saying, run the tap, just run the tap for a little bit and, all the ooby-goobies will come out the end and then the water's safe to drink. Yeah.
Just one other side issue before we go back on to the water reform report. So another item, again, slipped my mind this morning was we're currently working with Hamilton City Council collaboratively on a submission against Watercare's water take, which is the submission's due on the 25th of March. So due to that very tight time frame, Gary will use his delegation to sign off the submission and then report back to you after the facts. We've come in late to work with Hamilton on it.
So what's the stance that you are supporting or opposing?
Opposing for reasons, not outright opposal, but we need to protect our water take. And once the river's fully allocated, where do we go in the future? So that's our main stance, is to make sure we reserve some water for the future when we need it.
We do need to realise that 80% of the water we take out goes back into the river, but that's never in the allocation. Regional councils say it's fully allocated. It's not, and they don't give you a credit for that going back in there. I don't know how Hamilton have got the gall to put an opposition piece into that resource consent, because Hamilton haven't got their own house in order. They need to have their water meters in. Everybody needs to have their water meters in. If you're talking about conservation, you just can't turn a tap on all day and night. We've all learned that. And on Morning Report the other day, they realised that Wellington don't have water meters. So Wellington have now, I think, got a large firm doing some work on how good or how bad water meters are. If they rung Waipa District Council, we could have told them, or Tauranga City Council, because they were building plant after plant after plant. And we all know that, but there's a reluctance to do that. But someone's got to come in and regulate that and actually grab a hold of it, because, it is a finite resource. We're probably a bit lucky we're upstream, we get first div.
Let Jim comment.
You've just mounted an argument for the new water companies, Grant, because they're absolutely going to bring in water meters, I'll guarantee that. But who's paying for them is the next question, because there's no information yet on how the charges are going to be put out, whether they're going to have the same per cubic metre rate across the country. And if they are, all those have already invested, we're going to be paying to cross-subsidise. These are all questions that the community is going to be asking us, and at the moment we haven't got answers.
Water's place in Kinloch the other day, and I asked her to have a look at her rates, and I was stunned that Taupo don't even have water meters in down there. Everybody gets charged $608 for as much water as they can use. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and it will become over the next 6 months, as if they do want a decision by December, it will become all consuming of your time to understand and answer the right ask and get the answers to the right questions. So.
I'd just like to point out that I'm really concerned about retaining local voice and influence, which is part of the DIA's presentation that's with this material, because in actual fact, what they've talked about, it seems to exclude the development community. Like in fact, it's the sort of very issue that you raised, Graham, that they seem to be saying that they're committed to retaining local voice, but I think they're looking at that as just as like consumers, like residents and iwi, but there's these other really important sectors that when you're thinking about the overall management of water, and particularly over the long term, that we do need to have the voice of developers and also those people that work with developers, I guess, so that that their story is also told and that we can come up with the right solution that meets their needs, because it's a different kind of need. In fact, industry is the same too. I think industry should also be represented. And yeah, I'm really concerned that there doesn't seem to be much shift in the high level headings, you know, what the DIA is working with. But as some of us are thinking through, you know, well, what could it mean? There doesn't seem to be any way that we can sort of get them to recognise that this is an issue that you're actually going to have to give us more detail or you know, perhaps, yeah, move from your original position, I guess, or yeah.
I think they're fully aware of the need to give much more information. I think that's why their quiet issue at the moment is they are collecting all the detail and assimilating all that so they can answer the questions. So the RFI that we completed for the Scottish Water Commission, that's all been completed and analysed. The answers to that, turns out, will be presented to the DIA. All the other work streams they've been doing, that was just one. There's multiple work streams going on. They've been doing all that work, so they can hopefully, so they can have the answers you're looking for and present that to us in a way we understand. I think they've deliberately not changed their stance too early until they've got all the answers they could possibly think they need, and enough to enable the government to make the decision, and enough for us to make the decision further down. And I think that day's coming soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a recommendation there, the document received from Robin. Bruce, are you moving? Thank you. Thank you, Mike. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Resolution to exclude the public. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Claire. All those in favour say aye.